Right, okay everybody, about to start doing a oil change and maybe a transmission oil change on my car, which is Ferrari F430 Spider 2009. So I've just got the engine a little bit hot and warmed up so that it makes the oil a bit thinner, allowing me to remove and replace as much as possible. If you have the luxury of a 4-post or 2-post ramp, then this is easy. If not, you can use axle stands, but that would be trickier and will need a bit more thought. So the first thing is to, as I said, is to warm the engine up and then take this is the engine cap, and after it can be warm, so be careful after you've warmed it up. It's only made of aluminium. The dipstick is removed and you can put it on a rag or a cloth, careful as such, and then give the entire thing a clean up. In doing this job, I then lifted the car up on the ramp and took off the panel for the oil filter, which is this thing. This is the upper surface of it. You'll see that surface from underneath, and you will need to remove 5 of these hex head or star Torx drive screws, and then there are 2 blankers, one over the sump plug, one over the crank plug, and of course, this being a dry sump, you'll get a lot more from the sump than the crank. The car is raised to a safe height, allowing access to the undersurface. This is the oil filter right there. It's a bit warm as hot oil's been running through it. This is the large sump plug. There's a lot more oil in there, and there's a much smaller one, 10 mil to the front. So this is 19 mil, quite a big sucker. So I'm going to take the filter off first and then drain the oil and then top it up. To remove the oil filter, although the access seems straightforward, there's actually very little room to get a ratchet in there, and it's often quite tight. So one of these universal removers on a ratchet which has a multi-angle swivel on it and maybe a breaker bar just to break the initial bonds is required. Ferrari have quite conveniently given you a little port here from the housing, the rubber boot that goes over the oil filter. See, once you've got it started, oil is going to come out of there, and it's handy to have a catch. So while that's dripping, so you have this little protector. We'll take that off. A little bit of oil has got to be smeared onto that seal. There's no other O-ring or anything to replace here. It's often a good idea just to put the date on, just to remind you that you should do it within the year of that, or less than 3,000 miles, particularly on this high revving engine. So torque it up to about 30 Newton meters, as it says on the thing, which is just under 30 20 foot-pounds, and then you're good to go. There it is. Catch it into that pan. Just crack it with a breaker bar. There will be some pressure behind it, and of course it'll be slightly warm, so be careful of skulls. So this is the old crush washer. You can see it's done its job. Take extra care. There'll be a gush of it, and then it might be hot, so be careful. I found that there was PTFE, which had been put on by the previous person, and this was bone dry, and I have been driving aggressively, so I'm going to just repeat that. Clearly PTFE is for plumbing, and I figure if it can withstand the temperatures of 60-70 degrees in hot water, should stand the temperatures of hot oil. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the torque settings for the sump plugs is 75 Newton meters, or about 55 foot-pounds of torque, and that should be enough. It's wise not to over tighten these. Now these are all torqued up. It's time to put the oil in. I'm going to be using this stuff, 10W40 Helix, because that's what Enzo Ferrari said I should use. So I'm not going to contradict the old man. I'm going to go ahead and put maybe 7-8 litres in, maybe a bit more, then start the engine, and then hopefully be able to measure the oil level with the dipstick and wipe off any excess oil that might have dropped around your car, and then start the engine. Any leaks, and there are none. So now I'm just waiting for the engine to heat up, get to temperature, and then I can measure the engine oil level with a dipstick, and then add as necessary. Remember, it's worse to overfill because it increases the pressures within the crank, and you don't want that. Okay. That is perfectly filled, and it's at temperature now. It's been running and idling for 10-15 minutes, so I know that it's lubricated all parts of the engine. I did have the revs up to 4,500 revs, kept them there for about 15-20 seconds, just to make sure that under load and pressure that the seals that I've created on the sumps and the filter are okay. So I'm going to go ahead and check them. Yeah. No leak there. And no leak there. And this is what the final thing looks like. All the panels are back, and the bungs. Everything's been given a clean, and it's time to lower the car. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be posting the one for the tranny oil change, hopefully next week or the week after. And I've got a few other cars in my collection, air-cooled Porsche and some diesels and a hybrid, which I regularly service to my spec, and it might be of use to someone out there. Thank you for watching.